There are 20 seats. That's it. 20 seats in the entire world for the job you are about to spend the next 15 years and potentially $16 million trying to get. The man currently sitting in the most valuable of those 20 seats earns $76 million a year. His super license, the document that legally permits him to drive in Formula One, cost $1.08 million in 2025. His team paid for it. The boy who will try to take that seat from him started in a kart at age 6. His parents rearranged their finances to get him there. He doesn't fully understand what that cost them yet. This is every level of a Formula One driver. What it actually costs to climb, what it actually takes to survive each cut, and what you find at the top, if you make it. Hundreds of thousands of children start in karts every year, across 5 junior championship levels: Formula 4, Regional Formula, F3, F2, and the factory test driver tier. The field narrows from thousands to hundreds to dozens to a handful, then to 20. Of the major driver academies right now, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Aston Martin, more than 40 drivers are cycling through their programs at any given time. In a typical year, 10 to 12 F1 seats turn over, not 40, 10 to 12. And until you reach the very top of this ladder, you are not being paid. You are paying. Your family is paying. Your sponsors are paying. The sport that will eventually pay Verstappen $76 million a year will pay you nothing for the first decade you spend inside it. Level 1. The Kart. You are 6 years old. The kart weighs 70 kilograms and sits 3 inches off the ground. Your father rented one for your birthday because you asked to go to the track instead of the cinema. You do 3 laps. You don't want to stop. He books another session, then another. By the second month, the track's coach pulls him aside after a Saturday session and says something your father will turn over in his mind for the next 12 years. Recreational karting costs almost nothing, a few hundred per session, but that is not the level that produces F1 drivers. Competitive international karting, the CIKFIA World Championship, the WSK Series, costs $50,000 to $100,000 per year. Machinery, tires, travel, mechanics, coaching, entry fees. Your family's involvement stops being support and becomes a financial commitment the size of a second mortgage. Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes. Every major team has people watching these paddocks. Not watching races, watching paddocks. Who comes back after a mistake and drives faster? Who crumbles? The talent identification starts here. And the spending starts here too. By the time you leave karting, your family will have spent $300,000 to $500,000. You are 12 years old. The ladder has barely started. Level 2, the junior Formula driver. You are 16. The first time you get into a Formula 4 car, it is nothing like the kart. The seating position is different. The aerodynamic load is different. Everything your hands have learned over 10 years transfers only partially. Your first timed lap is 3 seconds off the pace. You go back to the hotel and watch your own data until midnight. Formula 4 costs $200,000 to $500,000 per season. Formula Regional, the next step, runs $400,000 to $900,000. FIA Formula 3 costs $800,000 to $1.3 million per season, each series above the last, each one more expensive, more competitive, and more ruthless about who moves forward. If you are signed by an academy, portions of these costs are covered. Red Bull pays for their juniors, Ferrari pays for theirs. In exchange, the academy controls which series you race, which team you join, which engineers you work with. You do not choose your schedule. You are told your schedule. And there is the version of this level that nobody talks about in press releases. Red Bull's junior program has produced 8 of the 20 drivers on the 2025 F1 grid. That is the success story. The other story is the list of drivers who spent years in the Red Bull system and were cut, sometimes mid-season, sometimes after a decade, with a phone call from Helmut Marko that everyone in junior motorsport simply calls the call. You learn very early that the academy giveth and the academy taketh away. Level 3, the F2 driver. You are 19 or 20. Formula 2 races support Formula 1 weekends. That means you are in the same paddock as the men whose jobs you want every other weekend. Close enough to see what it looks like from this distance. You spend every race weekend trying not to think about that. A single F2 season costs $2 to $3 million. Most drivers spend 2 seasons. A competitive 2-year F2 program is $4 to $6 million. The cumulative cost of your entire career to this point. Competitive karting, 3 junior formula seasons, now F2, is somewhere between $5 and $16 million depending on the path. Almost none of it is your money. This is also where the money for seats reality becomes impossible to ignore. Guan Yu Zhou reportedly paid approximately $30 million in commercial backing for his Formula One seat at Alfa Romeo in 2022. Lawrence Stroll didn't buy a seat. He bought the team. Nikita Mazepin's father funded Haas's entire title sponsorship in exchange for his son's place on the grid. These are not aberrations. They are the system operating exactly as designed. You need 40 FIA Super License points to be eligible for an F1 race seat. Winning F2 outright earns all 40 in a single championship. Most drivers piece together the 40 across 2 or 3 series over several years. The Super License is the gatekeeper. Getting to the point where you can apply for one is the entire purpose of the last 8 years of your life. Level 4, the Academy and Test Driver. You have a contract with a Formula One team. It is not a race contract. You drive the simulator, a machine that costs more than most buildings and that experienced drivers say feels uncannily close to the real car. You provide feedback. You run programs. You go to every Grand Prix. You stand in the garage and watch the race on a monitor from the pit wall, headset on, listening to strategy calls you are not part of making. You are 30 meters from the car you want to be in. Reserve driver retainers run $700,000 to $4 million annually. You are being paid, finally. But the gap between this and a race seat is not measured in performance. It is measured in timing. A seat has to open. The turnover is 10 to 12 seats per year across 20 cars. 40-plus Academy drivers are waiting for those seats. In 2024, McLaren charged Toyota $3.5 million for a single Friday practice session for their reserve driver. Teams are required by regulation to give 2 such sessions per season to non-regular drivers. They found a way to monetize the obligation. You get 60 minutes in an F1 car on a Friday, and the engineers running that session are focused on tire data, not on developing you. You wait. This is its own kind of pressure, quieter than racing pressure, and in some ways harder. Level 5. The F1 Rookie. You are 20 or 21. The car is heavier than you expected. You knew the number intellectually, 798 kilograms with driver and fuel. But the first time you drive one in a race weekend, the weight expresses itself through every braking zone and every entry point on every corner. The commitment required under braking is greater than anything in your junior career. In the first session, you are processing more information per second than your brain has ever been asked to handle. By Sunday, you are racing. Your salary is $1 to $2 million at a backmarker team. The car you are in is 0.5 to 1.5 seconds per lap, slower than the front runners. You may not reach Q2 in qualifying. You are fighting for points with other cars at the back of the field. But the benchmark that matters most is not where you finish. It is where you finish relative to your teammate. You share the same car and the same engineers. Your lap times are compared to your teammates before they are compared to anyone else's. If you are consistently slower, the team stops developing the car around your feedback. Your relevance is determined first by the person in the other garage. Drivers experience up to 6G in high-speed corners. The neck must support the equivalent of 25 kilograms under braking. The cockpit reaches 50 degrees Celsius during a race. You lose 2 to 3 kilograms per race through sweat alone. The physical preparation, neck conditioning, cardiovascular training, reaction time work, runs alongside every other demand of every weekend, forever. Level 6. The established midfield driver. You are 24. You know the paddock now in a way that cannot be taught. You know which team principals say one thing in a press conference and mean another. You know which teams are investing in next season and which are managing the current one on a reduced budget. You can read all of this in a Thursday paddock walk. Midfield salaries run $2 million to $20 million. You are in the points fight. This means you matter to the Constructors' Championship, which means you matter to the team's commercial revenue, which means you are an asset the team is motivated to retain. Your contract negotiation has data behind it now. You also spend roughly 6 months of every year thinking about something that has nothing to do with driving. The driver market operates in cycles. When one major seat opens, it triggers a cascade through the grid as teams and drivers reposition. Your manager's phone is more important to your career right now than your lap times. The midfield is where many drivers spend their entire careers. Respected, competitive, never quite in the car that can challenge for a title. The gap between a midfield team and a front runner is measured in hundreds of millions of dollars of annual budget. You cannot outwork it. You can only wait for the phone to ring. Level 7. The race winner. You are standing on the top step of the podium. It is louder than it appears on television. The crowd below is larger. Your hands are still shaking slightly from the last corner of the last lap, and your engineer is talking in your ear, telling you to look at the camera. And you are not fully processing language right now because you have wanted this specific moment since you were 6 years old in a kart on a rental track. Race winner salary? $20 to $40 million annually. But the base salary is increasingly not the number that matters. Lando Norris earned $39.5 million in bonuses and commercial performance payments in his 2025 championship season against an $18 million base. Sponsorship, brand partnerships, image rights. The contractual mechanism that controls whether teams can use your face for commercial purposes. At this level, the driving is the smallest revenue stream. Here is the uncomfortable truth that nobody in the sport disputes, but few say directly. The best driver in the world in the second best car will lose to the second best driver in the best car, most of the time, most of the year. Hamilton won 6 of his 7 championships in a Mercedes that was structurally faster than the field for the majority of those seasons. Verstappen won 4 consecutive titles in a Red Bull that was in some seasons a full second per lap faster than the midfield. This is not a criticism of either man. It is just the honest accounting of what a championship includes. Level 8. The World Champion. The final lap of the final race of the season. The mathematics have resolved. Your engineer tells you on the radio. You already knew. You have been calculating it since lap 43. You drive the last 2 corners in a specific quiet that you will spend years trying to describe to people who weren't there. Then the world comes in from every direction at once. Verstappen, $76 million in 2025. Hamilton, $70.5 million. Norris, $57.5 million in his championship year. The World Championship changes the number on the next contract, the sponsor value, the cultural reach. Verstappen lives in Monaco. Monaco has a 0% income tax rate. At $65 million in base salary, that single address decision is worth tens of millions annually. There are 7 drivers in Formula One history who have won more than 1 world championship. Hamilton holds 7. Schumacher held 7. Verstappen has 4. The conversation about which of them was the fastest, the most complete, the most worthy of the title, that conversation will run for as long as the sport exists and never reach a final answer. That unresolvable argument is, in part, what Formula One is. There are 200 children at this international karting race. Of the 200, the statistics suggest 1 or 2 will reach Formula One. The others will find the ceiling at different levels, in different years, for different reasons. A bad season when they needed a good one. A management decision that went against them. A budget that ran out 6 months before the seat opened. Most will never know exactly where they lost the thread. That is the specific quality of a ladder this narrow. The distance between making it and not making it is sometimes talent, sometimes timing, sometimes the phone number in your manager's contacts book. The ones who make it will earn more in a single year than their parents spent on the entire journey. The ones who don't will watch on Sundays. Both groups started in the same cart,